Okay, so welcome back to Finding Nirvana Within, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Angela,
And I'm Kristen. And here we
and what's the topic today?
are. Was it about are you an intuitive? How will you know you're an intuitive,
Mm,
sensitive, a medium, maybe, the first time it was introduced to you?
mm.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so for me, that's tricky because the first time I was a child when it was introduced to me. Um, but, and I knew I had gifts. I knew, well, I figured everybody had it. I thought it was kind of actually really quite normal, to be honest. And so I never really thought anything of it. And I used to watch like, gosh, John, I can't think of his name, but he had a TV show like about being a medium. But anyway, John Edwards, crossing over with John
Oh.
Edwards. Do you remember that show?
Barely, but I remember hearing about it. Yeah.
I used to watch that show. I loved that show. And I was just like, man, that's so cool. Um, and then, all through my life, I had experiences. And then finally, like when all of this kind of happened, um, that's when I really kind of started peeling the onion layers back
Right.
of my own consciousness. Because I mean, I'll always say that I think every person on this planet is psychic. I think it's just a matter of where you are within your own consciousness
Hmm.
and how asleep or awake you are, right?
Hmm.
Um, and it's for me, what I've come to realize is that the more I do inner work and I heal and I just dig out the horse shit. Like I just kind of take the horse shit off of my flame, right? That's in there. That's how I kind of visualize it. The more I uncover it, the better my gifts become. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
so yeah, that's kind of been my journey on being an intuitive and stuff. What about you?
I think it's been poking its head throughout my life in different situations where it's like I'm being tested, or like, and when I say tested, I mean tested on how strong I am. And then part of that was like, especially when I was a kid, I was drawn to like paranormal like books and stuff. Like, it was dark stuff, and like, ooh, the haunting. Let me read this. I was 9 years old, and I mean, I had a really weird incident happen when I was reading that book, and I was 9, and I was, in the Bahamas, where I'm originally from. I know there's no accent. I left before I was 12. Because if you stay in your home country up until you're 12, you usually keep your accent for your whole life. But I left when I was 10. So anyway, when I was 9 and I was down there and I was reading this book, um, I was getting to a part where there was a knock at the door in the book. And at the same time, there was a knock at the door in the book, there was a knock on my door in real life. And there was something that I felt come through my gut that warned me that it was something not good.
Mm.
So I mean, it ended up being a really traumatic. It was one of my very first traumatic moments as a kid. Also learning about my intuition, learning about paranormal stuff, like the spiritual realm showing
Hmm.
me something about the physical realm. It was one of my first encounters with that, and it ended up being something very traumatic, and that I had to really work on healing myself from that when I was a kid, because I didn't, I did not get therapy for that. I really had to just push through that because I didn't have enough like support or emotional support at home. But that was one of the first incidences, and I never forgot it because that was a sign. And then what ended up transpiring was, of course, I ended up being okay, but it had happened in such a way where I felt my intuition, my gut being activated. in such a way that I was never going to forget
Mm,
that feeling that you get that something is not right, or that I need to pay attention to this, or,
right.
um, that's when it first started, so it was definitely, that was an activation I'll never forget. But from there, I felt another key time where I felt activated was when I was pregnant. I felt like I was an open portal.
Mm,
There were so many interesting, paranormal, spiritual activities and events that happened, when I was pregnant. It was things I was seeing that I usually wouldn't be able to see, out of the corner of my eye. I mean, I saw, yeah, so, I mean, very like spirits and all kinds of stuff around me. And then, different incidences that happened that showed me that I was also beyond my sight, that
okay.
certain things were around me. And thankfully for me, my birth teacher, who was also a tarot card reader, a healer, a Reiki specialist, and a paranormal activity specialist,
Wow.
she was a spiritual practitioner of all kinds, and then was a birth teacher. I'm glad I picked her because she was who I needed at that time. She was able to do like all kinds of spiritual cleanses for me
Mm,
for free, and um, to pay, and
right.
it was like she offered me the services I've offered other people, and it was like, wow, that was, it was so many divine women around me when I was pregnant, and they were exactly the people I needed to
Love that.
support me through it, because I wasn't getting the support from my immediate family. I got it from these other people that, the divine placed in my life at the time. And it was all very spiritual stuff that they had to share with me. Everything was so spiritual. And that's how I was able to have the healthy birth that I did and have a home birth, was
Mm,
because I feel I had all of the right people that helped me do that. And it was all women,
wow.
so it was powerful. But anyway, it was a card reading that she did, that she did on me, where she pulled out the card healer. And then she gave me
Mm,
some advice about that. And then she said that, oh, I get it. You're sensitive. Like she could see, like she had a vision, she had visual, the gifts of being a seer. Like she saw it, and it wasn't written on the card. She saw that in me, and it wasn't
oh,
written on the card.
right.
It just said healer. But then as we had communicated more, and how she saw how I guess how I was, she was like, oh, I get it. You're sensitive. You got to be careful with this, with that, and then you're probably good with this and this and that.
Mm,
And it's something deep, much deeper than what it sounds like. A sensitive is a kind of intuitive, and it is based off of your senses. When you can sense something, and you can sense it, so what's the word, very intricately, very, it's just the slightest thing you can feel is not right. So that's a sensitive, is somebody who can really, at the very slightest bit, you can sense, no, I can, you could see into a situation. Like, for example, I'll give you an example, probably how one of the ways how she might have known. She had said to me one time, yeah, well, did you have a male doctor? You have a female doctor, or maybe you don't even think it matters. But, and I was like, I said, oh no, it definitely matters, and I said, I am not, team, but I was like, I am not trying to have somebody who's labeled a doctor who gets to see my cha-cha every day, that who I'm paying,
yeah.
and actually assume that they're not a man still. And I was like, again, I was sensitive. I wasn't one to naturally overlook that, because it's a widely accepted thing that, yes, men are OBGYNs just like women can be OBGYNs. And mind you, yes, it is a profession. I'm not saying every male is unprofessional. I just don't understand,
Right.
unless they are gay. And even then, I'm not sure. At the end of the day, how do you not see me as an other? How do you not see me and separate yourself from what you have physically, and be intrigued by what I have, like, so I think, and then she said, wow, you're very smart, it was just like, whatever. But it was just, I think it was is conversations like that where she noticed that what I was saying was unlike what other people would say out loud,
Right.
that's just what I would be thinking and what I would be seeing. And I was confident in that. And I'm not saying, again, that every male doctor is a pervert. I'm
Right,
just
right, right.
saying I am sensitive to that because just like that, yes, there can be lesbian OBGYNs, but
Of course.
there's something about that that would make me feel a little bit more comfortable. She sees her own every day.
That's fair. That's fair.
So I think I would be comfortable, a little bit more comfortable with somebody who already has it. So it's not like what I've got is anything special, you know? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so yeah, obviously I had a female one and she was very similar to me. We did our
Yeah,
hair
yeah.
the same way. She was a person, was a former personal trainer. Yes, she was another melanated woman, and she was also pregnant at the same time and due around the same time with her first girl child, like me. So yeah, I mean, the way things aligned in such a way where it made me feel comfortable. But besides all that, my birth teacher really kind of introduced me to the word sensitive, and then from there I've just been noticing how I've grown more sensitive and to trust myself more, because when she
Hmm.
showed that to me, it showed me that I needed to trust my sensitivities more rather than thinking and labeling it like how other people did to me. They would say, "Oh, you're paranoid," or yeah, they would be like, "Yeah, you're paranoid, girl. Are you paranoid?" But I'm just like,
Yeah.
just because I sense that and you don't doesn't mean I'm paranoid. I just
Right.
can't assume that everybody is one way because that's what you do, because that's what whoever was doing.
Absolutely. Right,
But
right, right.
when you're sensitive, you have more responsibility to paying attention,
Yeah.
and there's a reason why something is being shown to you, and it's attracting your attention. There's something there oftentimes.
Right.
So you
Absolutely.
know yeah, so I mean, and what has come out of it, I've been greatly able to help other people see what they would overlook inside themselves that could really help them overcome stuff, or help them accept themselves more, help them understand themselves more, help them understand the situations that they're in and possibly why, and
Right.
help them heal and help them be more whole and help them solve problems that may be reoccurring. So, I mean, there's a lot that can come out of being a kind of intuitive. And a lot of that is helping yourself as well as helping others. So, I mean, Helen, wherever you are in the world, I really appreciated Helen, my birth teacher, because she was also a gene of many traits, and yeah, she helped me a lot during my pregnancy. So
That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So, girl, what would you call yourself though? Like she shared with me that I was a sensitive, intuitive. Were there any Was there anybody who shared with you, hey, you're this kind of intuitive, or you're a medium,
I
or
am a medium. And there's two, like, well, there are two schools of thought that I have come across with mediums. Um, John Edwards, I read his book. And he and his teacher were of the thought that mediums are born, not created.
I love that.
And there's another woman who says everybody's a medium. Um, and I think personally everyone is psychic, absolutely.
Yeah,
But not everybody is a medium. And it's kind of like all bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon.
I like that.
Like,
Yeah.
so, um, when people are like, "Oh, I'm a psychic medium," I'm like, "Well, yeah, because you have to be a psychic to be a medium, but you can be a psychic and not be a medium,
Hmm.
but you have to be psychic if
To
you
be
are a
a
medium,
medium. Got it. Yeah.
right?"
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, so that is, I guess, how I would classify myself as a medium. Um, And what I have found that's so interesting is very much like our senses, physical senses. Um, we all have different psychic abilities. Just the same. Like your clairs are probably very different than my clairs. Like,
Mhm.
I I don't get the the tasting. I get smells. Um, I have the sight, I have the hearing, the knowing, and this sensing. I think that is, but I don't think I've ever gotten the tasting, which is interesting. Um, and in the mediumship, like when I'm doing what I consider mediumship, um, I did a read the other day actually, and what was so interesting to me is I think because I have such a staunch energetic boundary,
Hmm.
um, some spirits that come through, I'm kind of turned off unless I've completely opened myself up. But I think like a lot of the time, if I'm doing read or like oracle reads, if I'm doing cards and stuff like that, I'm not open to mediumship. So what will happen is I'll be doing a card read for someone, and then all of a sudden something physical will happen to me. And I'm like, okay, all right, okay, who is that? Because it'll be something like the other day it was I couldn't breathe, and my throat was closing up, and I started coughing and I started clearing my throat a lot, and I was just like, what is happening? And I was like, okay. And then I started seeing a name, and um someone was in my chat and they were like, yeah, I can relate to that. Like I can identify with that. So it was her that I was, that this was for. And and then throughout the read, it was her grandfather who was coming through, and he showed me things. So I will see things with my, in my mind's eye, and then I will hear him.
Hmm.
And and then while I was talking and while I was getting these little nuggets of information from him, and he was showing me things, all of a sudden my eyes went blurry and I couldn't see for like a split second. And I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, that was really weird. And it was something that had never happened to me. And every mediumship read is different. And then in that very instant, I realized, oh, like he had something, like he had an eye, like he needed glass. He wore glasses. Come to find out, he wore glasses. He was farsighted. But up until that read, nothing like that had happened. I mean, I would get like the chest or like as a heart attack, or I felt pain in my ribs, like someone was beating the crap out of me. Um, Shooting pain in my temple for a possible um unaliving of oneself or someone else doing it. Um, and it's so, and like I said, everyone is different, but for me, I tend to think that mediums are kind of born and not created.
Yeah.
So, but then again, what do I know? Like, I could be completely wrong. I don't know.
I mean, I don't think you're necessarily wrong at all. I think or feel I feel it is my feeling that maybe not everybody comes online from the time that they're born, but it can be something that's shown to them that
Mm,
throughout the course of life they can get certain activations. Like
yeah.
I know along the way in my life I've gotten plenty of different activations
Oh, yeah,
for
that's a good point.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, for different gifts to come online as well as different just divine knowingness. And like you, I got the clear cognizance. I think probably more than anything, it's like I'm sensing something or I'm feeling a deep gut feeling. And I don't know if I want to feel this because it's letting me know something not so pleasant maybe down the road and I
Yeah.
can't shake it and I may not be able to shake it for like a night, and or I'll start seeing 444 early. Oh God, it's like, ooh, but 444 could be good too, though. It's just like, but everything is working for our good. However, I feel a lot of times, certain things can come with some turbulence first before you get to the part that you would think is good. So
And
I
you are
think
the like you're my go-to.
the numbers,
With
yeah,
numbers, I'm like, I don't know. Let me
Yeah, I'm
let me call Kristen. What do
they
you
they
think?
they never end, man. I mean, from 2013, I was doing a blog talk radio with my former best friend at the time. And I mean, it started from then, and me and her would share numbers from then. But I also noticed that my life was changing. I was going through an activation. That was the year before I decided to leave home and go and find
Mm,
God through experience, and not live sheltered in a box in my parents' basement and live at the mercy of them. I decided I need to adult now. I can't
absolutely.
be controlled. I can't be influenced heavily. I can't be coerced or guilted into staying around. I need to go and live and figure out, what this life is supposed to be for me. And the numbers really led me through that. I was seeing 1111 so many times, and 1111 is such an awakening number. So,
Mm,
and at that time, the signs that came physically were like so many doors closed to show me that all of this stuff is a dead end here where you're at. Maybe this is the perfect time for you to travel. I mean, relationships ended that I had no business being in the first place because they were karmic relationships. I had a variety of jobs that just ended abruptly, or I was getting pushed out in these weird kinds of ways that corporate likes to do you. Well, they said you're wearing the wrong shoes today. Well, they said you shouldn't be eating at your desk today. Well, they said, it was really weird shit where it's just like,
yeah.
what? So why don't you just tell me you don't like me? You don't want me here anymore. That could work too.
Right.
you know and
Yeah.
then and then at the same time I was working at this other job literally like 2 blocks away from that job, and on the same road in Virginia, in Northern Virginia, at the Westin, I was the
Oh,
food runner, the bartender, the host, and the server. I mean, it was like 4 different jobs, and I was getting paid like $80 a night doing that. And I'm like, this
shoot.
is too much to be. I was new though. I was a new server. And then before that position, I was working as a bartender because I had just gotten my bartending license and I was trying something new after personal training. Finally reached kind of a dead end for me. And there, at this bowling alley slash bar slash restaurant slash cigar bar, people, yeah, the servers said to their customers, you don't get drinks from her, you come to me. So that would take all of my drinks and my drink tips so that I would only make like $40 a night in an 8-hour shift. And then the bouncers would be so upset, they would tell me, hey, Kristen, you see what they're doing, and they're having you do all
Wow.
this work too, like with the mopping and stuff. So it was a dead end position. So you see, I'm saying a series of events happened that
Yeah.
showed me, maybe my time here is done. And then it was a situation too at home where my dad had left and had like a midlife crisis, wined and dined other women from Thailand to Cancun. Came back. And then my parents were like trying to beg me to stay in their basement. Why? So I was like, I've got y'all do you. I have to learn me, and
Right.
I feel like I need to do better,
Right. Right.
and learn what healthy relationships are, at least strive for that. Start out with a fresh slate. Let all of this karmic whatever dust blow over. Let
Yeah.
all the karmic dust blow over and go and live my life and cleanse myself and be renewed. And I did that. But you see, I saw 1111 throughout that whole time. I learned about the number 11. I had talked to different people who had their own radio shows, and they were truth seekers and have written books about numerology. I had somehow come into the same space as them on Facebook. They had their own radio show. They even invited me on their radio show as a guest, and this is back in 2013.
Wow.
And that was when I was first introduced to what life path numbers are. And the guy who I was talking to was an 11. And I
Okay.
was like, oh, I wish I was an 11. And then I did my own numerology and I was an 11. And I was an 11. And I was like, well, what's the 11's in my birthday, 11's in my name. Like 11 is who I, so much of who I actually am. So, and I see 11 all the
Interesting.
time. most of the time I drive to the gas pump, it just happens to be number 11. And that's my number to kind of show me that, hey, you're on the right track. And usually 11 will be that number for most people when they see it, is that, oh, it's just saying you're on the right track, keep going. Or you're going through a spiritual awakening, which is also on the right track. But
Okay.
11 is a very powerful number, very spiritual, and it's whoever is an 11 typically will be a visionary and all kinds of really cool stuff. But it's supposed to be a spiritual master. You know, it's usually people that did not have an easy life. You have a lot of ups and downs, and it's, you know, it's a lot of challenges, and it's a lot of soul growth. You know, so if anybody's 11, I don't know if I would wish that for you. It comes with a strange energy, you know, like that energy of when I was a 9-year-old
Mm,
facing a home invasion, you know, by myself. You know, it can be that kind of an eerie energy where it's like, you know, there's so much that you are being forced to rise out of. There's so much
mhm.
that you know, so much strength is needed for you to overcome, you know. So, girl, yeah,
That's
that
interesting.
was, yeah.
So, and that's interesting because I was starting to get into the Chaldean numerology. And I know there's like the Pythagorean numerology. There's several schools of numerology. Um, Several rabbit holes you can go down. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Um, and I did my, with my name that I use, which is Kaha Anahera, it means it's Anahera is my name in Tereo Maori, but Kaha means strength and Anahera means technically angel. Um, and so it's a strong angel. And what's interesting, is that my name, Angela, the English name is angelic messenger of God.
I
But
love that.
when I take my name, my given name, um, and put it with Chaldean numerology, the what's interesting is since I've started my spiritual walk and going online and stuff like that on TikTok, my given name resonates pretty deeply with my past and the older version of me. And the name that I use on TikTok actually resonates so much more deeply with who I am now.
Hmm.
It's so interesting. But yeah, like I don't know life path numbers like that. I am a 9. Um,
Which can be, it was what Bob Marley was. You know, it can be
oh,
another
interesting.
like very, you know, there's a lot of challenges, you know, that comes with, it's like the higher you go up in number, the more challenging it seemed like life can be. Not always the case, because I know some fours that have had some really challenging lives too.
Right. Right.
I just think truly spiritual people typically will have a lot of challenges, but some of us definitely have more challenges than others. But like I feel like in my life path, I feel like I go through every year is like climbing back up from zero. You know, it's like
Mm,
sometimes I'm taken to the zero, that 0 point energy, but also could translate into a total reset of your life in every way possible, which means like it's a period of losing
right.
so that you can climb higher and gain again. And I feel like
Hmm.
I've gone through that cycle like 8 or 9 or 10 times now, you know, where it's like, wow, I'm like, now I've got to rise again. You know, it's just like,
Right.
well, what did I do? Was it something that I did wrong? And I try not to think that way sometimes, but because I sometimes think that way too much because I can be hard on myself. But I'm like, is it something I did wrong? Or is it a cycle thing? Or is this just my life path and my life
Mm,
journey to making my soul strong? Because I know I'm here to prepare this this soul for the next
right.
life. And
Right.
it's more so, and that's been my intuitive, like, that's been my intuition about my journey from the time I was a kid. There's something more. Like I could even tell you from when I was like 4 or 5, my very first time I felt like empathy for somebody, and I made the decision at that young age to never hurt anybody again. You know,
Right.
it was like, so that meant with everything, it's like, I'm not going to be trying to get into trouble as a kid. I don't want to bring about, you know, it was like I had this conscience that I don't want to bring anything that's so-called bad. Like I don't want to bring any kind of those kinds of feelings toward. I don't want anybody to feel that from me. I don't want to
Right.
be a burden. You know, it was like that. And the first time again was when me and these other two kids, we were playing in a tadpole puddle because I lived in the Bahamas at the time. And it was this other little girl who was probably like 2 or 3, and then her brother who was probably like 5 or 6, and then there was me, and we were using sticks and stuff. And I saw her lean over, right? I saw her lean over, in the puddle, and something came over me, and like I feel like I just want to push her.
Do it. Push
Yeah,
her.
as a kid, there's that voice inside your head that's just and it
Yeah.
was like maybe I thought it would be funny. Maybe I just had the urge. You're a kid. You're like you're in a state of wonder, but I did that, and I had to think back. When the brother came over and knocked on my door, and I was already at home, and the little girl was dripping wet. And I remember seeing her, and she was in tears, and her
Oh,
brother was a good older brother, and he said to my mom, your daughter pushed my sister in this puddle, in a tadpole pee puddle. And yeah, because people would pee in those sometimes, where I live, and I remember feeling so bad about it, and I thought to
oh,
myself, I don't ever want to
you
be
pushed
that
her and ran
person.
away.
I pushed her, and I think I ran away. Yeah, because I'm like, how did I get home so fast? When I think back to when I think back to that memory, I'm like, how did I get home so fast? I'm like,
Smoke.
dang,
There's a smoke trail behind you.
I ran. And you know what? I can admit, the good thing that came about that was that I recognized at such a young age, I don't ever want to be that person
Yeah.
that has purposely hurt somebody else
Hmm.
just because I felt like it. And because I know a lot of people do stuff, and I've noticed that throughout my life, a lot of people do shit just because they feel like it. It's just not a good enough reason,
Yep.
to be causing any kind of harm that's going to bring trauma on somebody for possibly the rest of their life, where they have that memory. Oh, that
Absolutely.
person did that to me. It just wasn't worth it. So that was the first time I felt empathy. So when we talk about sensitivities, that was the first time I felt true empathy. And I really felt it in my soul. I felt like my ancestors were talking to me and saying, you can't do that again.
Right.
You're not here for this. Like, I always felt like I had a strong inner voice. I had strong conviction. I had strong conviction from the time I was a 4 and 5 year old. And if I didn't remember anything else, I remembered that one
Mm.
memory for the rest of my life. And
Wow.
yeah, and I don't think that when we talk sensitive and medium and all this, you have unique experiences that truly show you, what, maybe I'm a little bit different
Mm-hmm.
than other people a little bit, because the level of conviction and the level of responsibility I feel I have to be a certain way is kind of up there. So we
Mm-hmm.
say integrity, we can apply the word integrity, but I felt it was something much deeper than that. That when we talk angels, we talk, there's such thing as earth angels. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that we might have a connection to and not realize, but that the divine has already chosen us for certain, you know, to embody certain things that we
Right.
don't know. We see these meat suits, but we don't know what our soul looks like. We don't know what's really going on with that. We don't know what assignments we may have on this planet, but you can feel sometimes a strong conviction or a strong pull to do something different. So
Mm.
I've always felt a strong pull to do the right thing, if
Right.
there's, when there is a clear right
Right.
within
Right.
for you or me,
Yeah.
it's like there was always been something that's like, no, go this way, not that way. And you know better. Or if there was ever a time where I went away that I wasn't supposed to, boy, I have a very self-convicting spirit that can give me a lot of anxiety, because it could be overkill if I, feel like I did something wrong that I didn't know at the time, or what have you, or I went overboard with standing up for myself. Even standing up for yourself, you
Right.
could feel a kind of way about. But it's like, why am I chastising myself for doing
Mm-hmm.
what I felt was right in that moment? I could be very, too much with that. So,
Right.
oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that's just.
Well, since we're wrapping up, we're running out of time, but for someone who thinks they're an intuitive or who, I mean, again, like I said, everyone is, in my opinion, they're psychic. What do you think some good ways to kind of channel that or hone in on your skills and kind of open yourself up to be better at it? Do you have any tips for that?
I would say, spend a lot of time. And oftentimes, when you are that person, you will naturally be in some kind of isolation at some point in your life where you just notice, you want friends, but somehow, some way, you don't really have any, or you only have a few, or you may want family, but somehow, some
Mm,
way, you had to back away from them, or they're unavailable. So oftentimes when that happens, I think it's the divine really preparing that person to come online with their gifts, to understand that they have gifts, to listen, be able to actually hear that intuitive guidance and voice,
it's an
and really
opportunity.
hear them. What would you say?
It's an opportunity. I
Yeah, it's an
100% agree.
opportunity.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I feel like we really grow stronger when we're alone, to really hear ourselves. Because what other time
Yeah.
would you be hearing yourself and noticing certain,
Yeah.
unique traits, unique voice, unique thoughts,
Yeah.
unique guidance that you would be getting? If you're always around people and you're always distracted, how would you be able to hear that? So I
Yes.
think that's a key point, as well as knowing the difference between your voice and the divine's voice. And the way that I think it could be a distinct way to figure that out is whatever voice could show you a higher truth in a situation. Like, for example, if you know what, I don't really want this job, and this seems shallow, it really doesn't seem like it's for me as well. And then a voice comes in and says, you know what, but this is the only thing I didn't get a blockage with, and it may force me to have to reconnect with people I haven't talked to in a while, and maybe there's something
Mm,
that I need to experience, have a conversation with, and somebody who I may have to have a conversation and give them a message. Maybe they need to give me a message.
mm-hmm.
And when would an opportunity like this arise? Had I not been in the situation where this is the only, opportunity that's calling me back,
Yep.
and then this opportunity just happens to deal with me having to call and reconnect with people, then seek people out, when
Right.
typically I would just get used to being isolated,
Mm-hmm.
so I think listening to that voice that says, wait, hold up. I know your heart and all this says, I don't really want to do this because, the 3D world, and I don't want to be, whatever other reasons that might seem petty. I'm not going to put that on anybody, but it might seem
Right.
something unfavorable and undesirable. Um, just that one random thought that comes in there, but wait, hold up a second.
Yeah.
Um,
Pay attention. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I would say, the random thoughts that come in when you're already on a track of determining something and concluding something, and then something says, wait, let's take a look at this. There's something else here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always get that. But when I do listen, because I'm like, you know what? And then what'll happen is oftentimes when I do listen, it shows me that, oh, this person really they needed my help, they needed my compassion, they needed my advice, they needed, or I needed their help, I needed their wisdom, I needed their advice, I needed their ideas, I needed, their community,
Right.
or
Yep.
and it's not until I would have followed that divine guidance, that said, wait, hold up, or I feel like I want to go to sleep tonight, but I know I need to put out my outfit for tomorrow. Oh, I could just do it in the morning, and then you decide to not do it until the morning, but then you realize you're running late in the morning, and had you put that outfit
Always
out,
works that way.
so,
Yep.
and that I think is that divine voice that's just saying those little things that could help you. It's not that thing that necessarily
Yep.
wants to have authority over you, but it's that thing
Mhm.
that wants to help you, show you, wait, maybe you should go this way instead of that way.
Yep.
So it's a guide, just like how parents are supposed to just, they're supposed to be a guide, not
Mhm.
necessarily authoritative all the time, but we want to be a guide. We want, we just guide your hand this way. Let's go. And it's supposed to be more of a gentle kind of thing. I realize as a parent, it's not always about exerting control and order, but it's also about, hey, I'm here to guide you, you know, just listen, because mom just want what's best for you, So yeah.
That's a good way to
I,
put it.
yeah, I hope that, thanks for asking that question. That was fun. And obviously I've had those conversations with God lately. Like, I know I told you to put that out yesterday. I know I told you didn't want to do this. I'm leading you right back to sales and marketing, or whatever.
Absolutely.